And the Rav is not judging you. Trust me, the Rav is not judging you. The Rav is looking at every single individual as a neshama who needs to know haderech, shayasun, amaisa, shayasun, what they need to do halocha l'maisa. That's the only cheshbeinus in the Rav's mind. Any embarrassments that a person may think about themselves v'chulu, I want to tell you a secret.
Welcome to the channel Navigating Chabad. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share, because that helps the algorithm bring it to more people, which changes lives and brings Mashiach. And two disclaimers. First disclaimer that this channel is catered to a Chabad crowd, or at least religiously Jewish. And also disclaimer, this channel is not meant to bash anyone or any organization. We're here to change the world for the better, to improve Chabad, which improves the world, and yeah. So sit back, relax, enjoy, soak in all the goodness. Yeah, now. So today we have Reb Tuvia Kasimov. So I hear you have a sefer being released very soon. Can you tell us about that sefer?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. It's by the finishing stages, by the editing and design. It's called Shailos, ut'shuvos, Reb Tuvia. It's Shailos, ut'shuvos that some of the Shailos that came in, and Shailos that required a tshuva, a bir halocha, to explain one way or the other. So that's what it is. It's around 70 tshuvas covering from topics in Erechaim and Yeridea, Avnei Ezer, touching slightly upon Chesed Mishpat as well. And yeah, it's tshuvas that I wrote to shluchim, to the Rebbonim, to regular people, working people who are living a day-to-day life. So that's on one foot what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big zechus to be able to speak with you again. I got your first sefer a few years ago, Dvri Tuvia, and this is Shailos v'tshuvos Dvri Tuvia. But if I remember correctly, your previous sefer also reached conclusions halacha l'maisa in each siman, or most simonim. So what's the difference between Shailos v'tshuvos and the first sefer?
So the first sefer was really intended as biruri sugyas and halachas, just going through learning things that came up during learning, yeshmak chidushim, stuff like that I wrote for myself, and based on certain discussions which are found in the Achreinim, I went to the sugya myself and was mevader how it comes out, lamaisa, not lamaisa. But the truth is that sefer was not written so much of a shaila u'tshuva. It was not an answer to anybody. It was simply going through what we learned, what I learned, what I gave shiurim on. I wrote it down, any chidushim that I had. And when anything was negel halacha l'maisa, so I would make a little sikkum at the end of what was negel l'maisa. Mashenk in this sefer, the second one, the Shailos ut'shuvos, these are actual real live responses to people that asked the shaila, either verbally, through the phone, through email, however it came in. And these are the biruri halachas that came out of it.
How did you have the confidence to answer Shailos at such a young age?
Good shaila. So I'll tell you a secret. There's yesh confidence, v'yesh confidence. It's really, this shaila is very, very multi-layered. The first time that I was asked to answer shailas in an official capacity, but whoever asked me, whatever it was, my response was, I'm too scared. And I just want to remind you, this is after 3 years of full-time shimush. And I was finally asked after that to answer shailas at 1 hour a day, just to pop in during my lunch break by the local Bezdin here in Crown Heights, just to help out for 1 hour a day. And I was petrified. I was terrified. How can I do this? This is such an achnayas. How is it even possible to fathom such a thing? The response that I received was, good. You think we're going to take somebody who's not afraid? If you're not afraid, that's a very bad siman. If you're not afraid, that's a red flag. If somebody's afraid and they realize the responsibility, the achnayas of every single psak, this is dvar Hashem zu halacha, this is negel, deiri is the piske halachas that come out, then there's what to work with. If you're not afraid, then it's really not for you. Now, it took time to come over this courage. In the beginning, I was every single shaila I was running through a senior Rav. This is before I officially started on my own. Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha. There was a few shlavim. There's the time of shimush. Then I was shadowing, so to speak, under another Rav. And I was answering Shailos. Every single small detail I would ask, how do we pass in this case? How do we pass in that case? And I would take notes for myself. And so mitzad that's how it started. And the truth is, I didn't have the confidence in the beginning. I was petrified every single time. I remember the first time somebody brought to me a shaila, I was literally ice mensch. I couldn't. It was scary because even though I've seen thousands of these, thousands of shailas, nonstop, but that was all b'vchinas in the beis medrash. When it came halocha l'maisa, I was literally I was ice mensch. I could not think. I could not. Baruch Hashem, it wasn't such a difficult shaila. But when you take the proper approach, then it's a whole different story. When it's a healthy approach, halpi Torah, that you realize the responsibility, and the truth is, you also realize the zechus that the Eibusher has chosen you, that this should be your shluchus, that this should be your avodas Hashem. You treat it in a whole different way. And obviously, a person cannot make such a decision on their own. It's something that they need to be. That's the whole concept of, I guess, Semicha, technically, especially in today's day and age, where there isn't a real Semicha. But when you have a senior paisuk, somebody who already reached the level of Higia Lahira, when they tell you that you're ready, especially if they're ready to B'ksav, that's the minig today that the Rama brings in the Shechita, then you know that al pi Torah, you're allowed to do it. And if you have your teacher behind you, that they feel the confidence in you, that you learned and you're Higia Lahira, that is, that's answer.
Beautiful, very nice.
When you were in yeshiva, and obviously you were learning Gemara, Rishonim, Shagas Aryes, Pnei Yeshuas. When did you know that you wanted to get involved in horoah, and was there someone that encouraged you specifically at a young age? Because we have a very small pool of Rabbonim in Lubavitch. So how what was your she'ifa in the yeshiva to get into horoah?
That's a very, very good shaila. So by me, it started when I was on shluchus in Toronto. I don't know why I had a she'ifa to start learning Yeridea, to go through Semicha, to go through the Shittas, and for whatever reason, I decided to start going through Sugyas, halacha l'maisa. I remember we had every Mitzvah Shabbos, somebody would give a shir from the Talmidim. Sometimes it was the Shluchim, sometimes it was the Talmidei Yeshiva. And I remember that when I was asked to give a shir, I went and I was mevader, malab in a Sugya, libda hilchasa, had all the paskim v'cholo. From that, I would say from that kofa, that's when it really started. Why and how? Probably, most likely, I think I can attribute it to a certain level to the mashpia in the yeshiva, Rabbi Avraham Man. He was a mashpia, but not only the mashpia, he was also in charge of giving shiurim for Girsa and giving shiurim in Shulchan Aruch. And he didn't just teach us. He didn't just teach us this is the halacha in such a case, that's halacha in that case, but he taught us how to learn. He taught us how to be medayik in Alter Rebbe, how to really learn a siman, a seif, even just a seif in Alter Rebbe, to try to understand what is Alter Rebbe Shita. He really gave us hadracha, and I believe, just from memory now, I think that's what really got me interested in this type of learning. And then obviously from there, in Kailol, it just grew and continued, but that's, I guess, how it started.
How many shilas a day do you get?
That's a very good shaila. That itself is a shaila. How many shailas a day do I get? A lot. Sometimes it gets to the point where it's physically overwhelming to be able to answer. It's easily busier seasons. It's literally, without the bli guzma, over 200 phone calls during a busy season per day. WhatsApps, forget about it. WhatsApps is also a very, very large amount, and text messages are less. Most people today use WhatsApp, but it's also quite a hefty amount. On an average day, it's over 100 phone calls, WhatsApps. It's also it's around that amount.
Wow. So is there a need for more Rebbonim? That's what it seems, because are you able to answer all the calls?
There's bli shum safek that there's a tremendous need, because it's not just for one community, let's say the Crown Heights community, but these are phone calls that are coming literally throughout the entire world. Shluchim literally all over the world obviously have Shailos, the Blishim Safik, the Frume Yidden, not just for themselves, but also for the Kehillas. Of course, there's a tremendous need, and there's a tremendous lack. And there's definitely a need for more Rabbanim, Bli Shum Safik, or Svek Svek, or Klal Uklal. To answer the question. And you also asked, do I ever feel that, am I able to answer every single question? Sometimes, Pasha Begashmis, it's not possible to call every single person back. I have a policy that many people laugh at me about, that I call people back. I don't know why they laugh, but I have a certain etiquette. If I missed a call, I try mishtadel blina to call people back. And sometimes it gets to a point where it's physically not possible. That's Baruch Hashem. I can't say that's on a daily occurrence, but definitely during busier seasons, it's very challenging. It's definitely very challenging to be able to answer everyone.
Wow.
Who are your top 3 role models in horoah that you could mention?
My top number 1 is Meiri Rebbe, the Rebbe Ha'rav Schwartz, which I was zechus to already learn by for quite a few years. I took a lot of extensive shimush, and I don't think it goes by 2-3 days that I don't speak to him, a few times in the same day. I was zechus to learn by him. The seder by him is that you come in for shimush and ilchas nida, but once you're there, learning the matters, taking shimush and nida, all the other shailos that come in, you automatically you're there. You see how he answers the shailah v'cholo, and all I can say is Baruch Hashem shezachisi. I have never met such a Rav of a different caliber. Not just in his yediyah in halocha, but Pashat, he's such a mensch, and he's fully dedicated and fully given over to his Rabbanos. I remember the first time we had the first chabura that we had with him, he has groups. He told us a few klalim. One of the first things that he said was, in order to be a Rav in America, you have to speak English. So I guess for our Kehillos, this is not such a big deal, but he's in Borough Park, so I guess for some it may be a chiddush. He says, you're not allowed to be a Rav, you cannot be a Pesach in America if you don't speak English. Together with that, in the same Chabura, he also told us he said that today the shluchus of a Rav is pasha to be nice to people. That's from the first things that he told us. He says, today you can have the most frumy younger man, the most chassidische younger man, that's somebody who's la'ela, an aleph, whatever you want to call him. If you say something a little bit too sharp, you're going to destroy the younger man. He's going to be depressed for the rest of the day. And Yitachin is not going to ask Shailos anymore. At Kedei Kach. So he said, today, Pashut, you look a person, you answer them, you look at them in the face, you give them respect, you hear them out, v'chulu. So not only did he give us over the Yeseidos of the halachas, but he also imbued in us the fifth chelik of the Shulchan Aruch, which is something not written, and it's something that you have to either you have it, you're a mensch, or you develop it through seeing proper role models who are able to give it over. So he's definitely by far my number 1. My go-to, and as I said, it doesn't go by 2-3 days that I haven't spoken to him multiple times in the same day. The other 2, I would probably say the second one is probably Reb Shmuel first. He's an Avbezdin, a very chashuv Avbezdin in Chicago. He is somebody who I've spoken to many times on many numerous occasions, and what I found by him was he had every single din, every single halacha, mamish, klar on his fingertips. Of course, there are certain things that he would be ma'ayin in v'chulu, but what I found was that he was so oduk, b'divrei rabbi, he was so connected to his teacher. His teacher was Reb Moshe Feinstein. We're talking about a Zakin Muflag over here. Not Zakin Muflag, he's probably in the 70s, 80s, I'm not sure exactly. But I remember I once asked him a shaila, and he got so excited at such an old age. He got so excited. He's told me, I asked Reb Moshe Feinstein this exact shaila 50 years ago. And he, with such excitement, he ran to get his papers, to get his notes, and he said, I found it. And on this and this date, I asked Reb Moshe this shaila, and this was the psak that he gave me. So I definitely, we speak all the time, and we're very close. So I definitely have a lot of derech eretz, and I look up to him a lot. And I once remember there was Pleitas Akolmas by me a little bit that I was speaking to him, and I told him I couldn't hold it in. I said, "How are you have everything pashut on your fingertips? how do you do it? How are you so he told me something very, very interesting. He said, Lamaisa, you sit and learn every single free moment. There's no such thing. You're always constantly learning. And he says, you'll see the Eibush is going to help you. Punkt, you opened up that sefer, 20 minutes later, you got that exact shaila. And he told me it happens to him all the time. And he told me what keeps him going is that there's a sefer Yereim, has a minyan of mitzvahs. I've seen it in other places as well. That there's a mitzvah lahaydos, there's a mitzvah to paskin. If you know the halocha and somebody's asking you, that itself is a mitzvah lahaydos. There's a mitzvah to answer that shaila. So when I heard this from him, it was a tremendous chizuk, because sometimes when the phone calls are nonstop and you have other responsibilities, you have a growing family, it gets tough sometimes to keep going with the same chayis, with the same geschmack. But when you realize that your whole mitzvah is a mitzvah lahaydos, the Eibishter was mitzvah you, this is your shluchus in life, this is what Eibishter was memana you to do, it's a whole different, it reignites your chizuk to keep going. And probably number 3, it's a hard one. I want to make a disclaimer, even if I say only 3, there's many, many more. I was zechut Baruch Hashem, to really take shimmush by a lot of Rabbinim. I have very close connections with many Rabbinim, and if I'm not mentioning any specific Rav, it's not because chas v'shalom chesra kovid for any Rav, but it's simply, you only told me 3, so I have to answer 3. The third one I would probably say is Rav Yena Rees, also from Chicago, the Bezdin over there from the CRC. Also unbelievable. Aside for his tremendous yediyah and knowledge in Even Ezer and Cheshem Mishpat, all the Shailos that you can speak to him. Rabbi Basman was involved, that we set up a little bit of a chabura for Shimush in Bir Yuchsin and stuff like that, that he was so ready and so open to teaching us from his own free time. He wouldn't take a penny, he gave fully, he gave himself over, he would give a shir, he would prepare everything, he let us record it. And the Mirza Hashem is going to continue, but just the way he answers the phone, the way he's so given over to the klal, it's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. And trust me, he has what to do. All of the names that I mentioned are all people that have what to do in their life, and they're extremely busy, and you don't see it. When you're talking to them, nothing else exists. So by me, this is a tremendous source of chizuk.
Yeah, Shekayach, Rev Tuvia, I can say in my small way, I also have the zechus to be doing shimush by these 3 greise Rebbonim. But let me ask you a little more sensitive question. As Lubavitchers are watching this conversation, an aspiring young man or a bacher in Lubavitch that wants to grow in halocha. The 3 names you mentioned are not card-carrying Lubavitchers, and some of them might have, you can find recordings of them, perhaps not exactly being in line with everything that we hold so precious. So how would you be madrich aspiring Lubavitchers in terms of this huge amount of talent that exists outside of Lubavitch, and to be open to that and to embrace? The way I like to tell people is that there's Yud Beis Shvatim, and every shevet has its area of specialties. And I get in trouble for saying this, but I speak to many Rabboni Chabad, and they and Mashpiyim, and they agree with me. That we specialize in the area of shluchus, and I think when it comes to areas of learning how to build a community and train Rabbonim, we're not bad at it, but I think other communities maybe we have what to learn from. So how would you talk to, you're together, if Tuvia and I started a Kollel Rabboni Chabad, training over 150 shluchim around the world. Reb Tuvia is the Sigan Rosh Kollel with Reb Chaim Laraskin. So many of your Talmidim are going to be listening to this. How would you address that question?
It's a good shaila. It's a very, very, very good shaila. It's a very, very good shaila, and there's so many ways and so many angles of how to approach it. The first angle is that we're all Jewish. we're all Yidden. I mean, it's there's a Yidden that are from one, that they have one certain mahalachs. We're not two different nations. Chas v'shalom and Chmon l'tzlan. We're all kolanu ke'echad. We're all from Klal Yisrael. We have the same Eibishter. We have the same Torah. We have the same Shulchan Aruch. That's the first Yesod, that Chas v'shalom we should never look at a Yid who is not necessarily from our Eidah, from our Kehillah, that he is not from ours. Chas v'shalom. This is a terrible thing. And it only brings to not positive things. So that's the Yesod that we have to realize that I know it's Dvarim Pshutim B'Yeser, but sometimes Dvarim Pshutim B'Yeser not necessarily are standing out in everyone's mind. So the first thing is that we have to realize that that Yesod, that we're not two different people. We're the same Hilchas Shabbos, the same Hilchas Isser V'Heter, the same Hilchas Kashrus. Maybe their achraz will be according to different poskim, according to different shittas, which is only mechayev you that after you went to take shimush by them, you have to now go and be ma'ayin and work even harder in what the Alter Rebbe's shitta is, what the Tzemach Tzedek shitta was there any mesader or psak that was given over by Lubavitch Rebbonim and Rebbe? Forget, it's mechayev. After you took the shimush and after you learned the klalim, and then you have to now go and figure it out. How would it work according to the Alter Rebbe? So there's once a story that I heard many times in many different nuschos of who it happened to. I'll tell you the way I have it the most fresh in my mind. There was a very gar chashuv Rav, Reb Isaac Shveil of Shalom, right? He was from what I heard from today, the senior Rabbinim, the way they looked at him back then, he was a different gather, completely a different gather. The Rebbe was Semicha on him so much. There were certain piskei halachas that the Rebbe told him, dafka him, he should write, that they were for, the Rebbe needed them, so to speak, and he was only Semich, the Rebbe was only Semich on Reb Isaac Shvei, meaning we're talking about somebody who was a Gavra Rabba Ad Ma'od. So he was once in a car together with different Dayanim. I don't remember, maybe I remember hearing the bells are dying, this one, that one. I don't think it's so negea. And they made a comment to him. They said, Lubavitchers have it so easy. You just go to Alter Rebbe. We have a shach, we have a taz, we have a bach, we have a teres hashlamim, we have a chok Yaakov, a magen Avram. We have to figure it out, the prima godim, how are we going to be machriya, which tzad are we going to take, so on and so forth. You go with whatever the Alter Rebbe says, you're going to, you're good to go. Reb Isaac answered him, no, you got it all wrong. It's completely the opposite. Whatever we don't have the Alter Rebbe on, you have to now go be ma'ayin in the sugya and learn it kivyachal as if the same mahalach that the Alter Rebbe would have learned it on, and come out with the same askana as the Alter Rebbe would have come out with. And if you don't, you're tebet of our Mishnah. So I would say, first of all, al derech zeh, when you're learning by others, it's mechayev to go back and figure out the Alter Rebbe shitta. Right? You have a Kabbalah, you have a Messiah, you have a certain mahalach that you learned. Then you have to go back and see that if this is something that stems together with the shit of the Alter Rebbe. And I'll give you a practical example. There's a certain hula that I was makabel from the Rebbe Tzedek, and I saw right away this is not fit with Alter Rebbe. Whatever it was, it doesn't make a difference. And I asked him about it. And I showed him the Alter Rebbe. He knew the Alter Rebbe. It's Miyusad on the Mil Tzedakah, which is brought by the Beir Agel also, whatever it is. And he says, Enochanami. For you, each one has to go with the Messiah, meaning to say that not every single thing that you're going to learn by others, first of all, is a stira to the shit of the Alter Rebbe or the Tzemach Tzedek. It's not a stira, not necessarily. You're learning a trait, so to speak. You're learning a skill of how to paskin v'cholo. And in this skill, there are certain things that you'll paskin differently. Then after you learned what you learned, you go back to senior Rabbani Anash, and you see how it stems, how it fits amongst our Piskei Halachos. And by the way, I just want to tell you a little secret that even amongst Rabbani Anash, you're going to have different shittas. And even amongst Rabbani Anash, that the senior Rabbani Anash, they themselves took shimush outside of Lubavitch. I don't know if this platform is where to say names. I don't think it makes a difference, but this is a fact. So it's not mufrach at all to learn by others, as long as you go back and you you line it up with our Piskei Halachos, because that's certainly, you have to go with Alter Rebbe, you have to go with the Semicha, because the Rebbe had a certain shita, a certain kav in the sugya. There's no shaila about it that this is what you have to go back to, and that's the tzad machriya. But many times you'll see that we're not so different. In core areas, we're probably the same, and in certain Piskei Halachos, it could be a little bit different. So if somebody's starting out in horoah, let's say a bacher, so the main thing is that Aselech HaRav, we just had in Pirkei Avos now, we just finished Perek Aleph, that there's a tzivli from the Torah, Aselech HaRav, that every single person should find somebody who they respect, who's in the field, and try to get guidance and a mahalach from them, and they're only going to grow. Once they finish with this Rav, they're going to move on to the next one. And I also didn't start with these three. I started here in Crown Heights. I started by the local Lubavitch Rebbonim here. And with time, it moved on to others. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
As you
go
know,
deeper in future
yeah.
conversations. I won't. We'll suffice with that for now.
Yeah, I'm sure we can speak for a very long time, but unfortunately we have a limited amount of time. As you know, in yeshivas, they don't spend a lot of time learning halacha, and even the Gemara, it's not a liba de hochasa. So, as a Rav, what do you think should be your opinion on the chinuch of halacha in yeshivas?
It's true. It's 100% true. This is a fact that there isn't enough of an emphasis in halacha. Say the halacha in many yeshivas is a free-for-all, so to speak. You learn or you don't learn. You have whatever, 45 minutes a day, an hour a day, and go figure it out, right? And then what makes it worse is after all of that, what happens? What's your real exposure to halacha? Semicha. And Semicha destroys so many fresh, good bachrim who have good heads, have good potential. Why? Because they don't know what's going on. They don't know what a shach is. They don't know what a taz is. Leave me alone with the keva. Leave me alone with this. You're so under pressure to get to that test, to get your. I remember a man in Toronto, the mashpia. He would call the smicha. It's a shidduchim certificate. It's a passport to go for shidduchim. So you're so focused on the paper, and you don't even realize the limud and the geschmack in the limud. And many people are so turned off from learning halacha because of the stress, because of this pressure, and it's a big problem, to be honest. It's not good. Halacha is geschmack. It's so geschmack to learn, to really think over different shittas, to think over the nafkaminas between them, to go through a geschmack of prima godim. If you would have the proper guidance, there's no way you would hate it. Maybe you won't kochen it. Maybe you'll take the kav of iyun more. You'll want to sit up in Yeshua. Shagas Ari is fine, but you won't have a resentment towards halacha. So I don't think it's a big. There has to be a I don't want to use the word curriculum, but whatever. Blaise Breda will have to use the word curriculum. There has to be something in place for bachrim at a younger age. Of course, young bachrim are not going to be touching prima godims. They're going to be focusing on, let's say, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. They'll have a shir to spice it up. The Maggid will bring the different opinions in the Rishonim, give a nice machlokes, explain a little bit how the Alter Rebbe is being machriya. They don't have to learn the Magen Avram and the Taz inside, but if they have a shir that really gives it over to them and to explain a little bit the geschmack of the Alter Rebbe, the uft of the Alter Rebbe, it's unbelievable. It's going to change the whole outlook to how we learn halacha, and obviously you're going to move on to greater things, not greater things, but deeper things, harder things, more challenging sugyas. But if it's just free for all, then that can never happen. And when it comes to smicha, it's too late. So that's yeah.
So what would you suggest practically? You said that it's a lot of bachrim that learn smicha, or most bachrim that learn smicha. It's the way it's structured currently is too quick. It's not practical enough. It's not deep enough. So what type of changes would you propose based on your experience?
So it's twofold. You have to come into it understanding what you're doing. That's the first thing. You're doing smicha, and I think that's the worst way to call it. You're not doing smicha, you're learning yeridea. Once you finish your limud, then if you pass, then you receive a smicha. You're not doing smicha. That's the first thing that we have to understand, that the matara is not a piece of paper. I remember once hearing in the name of Rabbi Heller that he was once speaking to a certain individual. I heard it from him directly, who he was speaking to. And he told him, if you don't know what you're talking about, all the papers in the world are not going to help you. You don't know what you're talking about. People are going to find out in a moment that you're bad, that you're phony. If you know what you're talking about and you punk down on a piece of paper, who cares? Lamaisa, people see this is a person that knows. So al derech zeh, the focus is not about getting a smicha. The focus is right now you're fully immersed in a year of learning Isser v'Heter. The problem is most people don't understand what does it mean that I'm learning Isser v'Heter. So there definitely has to be a hakara, there has to be a certain understanding of what you're getting yourself into for that year. Right? Semicha does not just mean that you have more freedom from Yeshiva, the mashgiach is done on your back as much as is in regular base medrash. Semicha means you're taking your limud seriously to the next level. I use the word smicha, but the year of smicha, the year of Isser v'Heter is it's advanced learning in halocha, and this is the first message that Bachram need to realize when they're reaching this stage of what exactly they're learning, because many of them are going back and forth, and they're so. What practical application does this have? Bechlal, a keva, this or that, v'cholo, basar oif. It's deraisa Rabbanim. There's an isra hana by basar oif. Is there not an isra hana by basar oif? So, but if they came into it with the right perception, with the right, they're realizing that first of all that all the halachas that we have today stem from the foundations that you learn in Isser v'Heter, that from the foundations that you learn in the Semicha. Right? You can only give a psak in today's technology, in today's day and age, once you have the proper foundations in the sugya. When they have the proper background of what they're getting themselves into, that could be very, very helpful. And b'neisef lezeh, after you're already learning, to make it as practical as possible. Don't leave it hanging in the Elam Esliyanim that you have a Taz, you have a Shach, you don't know what the Taz's name was, you don't know who the Shach was, you barely know who the Mechaber Ramah was. Make it practical. I'm learning now the Shach. This is the Shach. This is where he lived. This was his position. Make it in a way that a person can relate to it and to understand who's the Pischei Tshuva. Who are all these Pesachim that he's quoting? Make it in a way that it talks to you. And then see what today's Pesachim, this sefer in Shulchan Aruch that we just learned, let's see today how it's tangible in a way that we can relate to it, in how it plays out halocha l'maisa. So I think if there's more emphasis on that, as opposed to just getting to the finish line, this can make a real shinoi in the Talmud's learning. Potentially, we'll see.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, so the Rebbe's horoah that everyone should get Semicha, that's referring to what you said.
The lashon the Rebbe was that the fact that it's everyone, the nekudah should be a rav beveisai. What does it mean, a rab beveisai? It doesn't mean you're getting a piece of paper. Rab beveisai is the pshat that you understand the halachas. Maybe you didn't learn it fully to the extent to be able to give a psak halacha, but at least you'll know what the shailos are. But if you just get a piece of paper and you don't even know how to identify what the shailos are, I do not believe this was the Rebbe's kavan at all. Right? You should know it at least to the level where you understand that there's a shaila over here. You'll remember, okay, there's a mechaber that says something over here that this may not be so pashut. We have to look into it. If you reach at least such a level, this is already an accomplishment because it's going from 0 to 30%. Right? And that's going to ensure that you have a proper Jewish home. At least that.
Yeah.
So going back to your sefer, your upcoming sefer, that we'll post a link for those that can take a chelik in their shtatfus to help publish the sefer. What's your style for writing tshuvos? A shaila comes to you, so many shailos have been addressed by previous poskim. So do you work backwards, or you work from the top, and how do you decide which tshuvos to publish? Because you get, like you said, 250 shailos a day. Times you've been doing this for what, 7-8 years. So how do those 70 shailos get chosen?
How do those? Okay, so I'll answer Rishon and Achrin mitzad the style. My style is very not bottoms up, not to go in today's poskim and achreinim. I try very much to be malab the sugya at least from the Torah Beisesim Mechaber Shachtaz. And this derech I was makabel from the Debet Zinadayan for the kailol that Rabbi Basman referenced to earlier. The first shir that he gave for the kailol, the first thing that he said was that his style is to work not bottoms up, but from up to bottom, meaning to say that you work through the sugya, you start through being malabin, the different shittas that are found in the Rishonim. You start with the Shulchan Aruch, the Neisei Kelim, so on and so forth, and then you try to see how it fits in. Is this a shas and chak? Is it not a shas and chak? What can we be Semicha on? So on and so forth. It is very, very true that many Shailos have already been spoken about. Some are addressing old Shailos, very possible. Some are addressing new Shailos. That's definitely, but the Nakuda is that going to the Sugya all the way down to halocha l'maisa. So that's definitely the mahalach. This is what the way I was makabel is don't start bottoms up from the malaktim. Malaktim are those who collect the different shittas in the poskim, but go learn it properly and write a proper tshuva. So that's the style that Bez Hashem Yisbarach I tried at least to take. And how do I know which tshuvos to publish? So on a practical level, it's really what I get around to. It's not physically possible to write everything. It's most Shailos I don't even remember. They come in, they're in one ear, the next moment they're out from the next ear, because there's so many of them. Things that stick out. And even the things that stick out, not necessarily do I have the ability to write all of them. But usually anything that is interesting, I'll try to sit and write down. There are certain tshuvas which are very, very geschmack. However, I don't believe that they're for a public audience because certain things are a real shas and chak for a certain individual, so on and so forth. And it's written down, but not necessarily is it something to be published, because what happens when something is published is people stretch it out much more than you intended it. You're writing on the case of a tremendous shas and chak, something which was a real, real difficult situation, and you built up a whole sugya of how to find the tzad to be mekel. What happens is next moment that all of a sudden you know that became the psak lechatchila. Why? Because it was printed. Once it's printed, it's a free world, and everyone's going to be Semicha on what they want. So those tshuvas I definitely did not publish, but I have them. Yeah.
Oh, just to follow up on that, so you have to be very careful in what you publish. So are there certain things that your teachers taught you or that you know intuitively to look out for? So you said one example of a shas chak. What are other things that to be cautious about that people shouldn't take it the wrong way? And I'm talking about people who the answer wasn't intended for. So obviously the person who you answer will usually understand you the correct way.
So today, it became a common thing to paskin from your friend, or to paskin from online, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a known challenge of today's day and age, where I remember there was once somebody, I think he's in his 60s, maybe in his 50s. He once shared with me that his wife was going through a tremendous medical crisis. And here in Crown Heights, and he went to a certain Rav in Crown Heights, and the Rav disconnected the phone, and he made a disclaimer. What I'm telling you now, this is going back 30 years. This is not a story from today, 30, maybe 40 years. He disconnected the phone, and he said, what I'm telling you now is for you and not for your friends. Be very, very careful not to share these hatarim, because the way that news spreads like wildfire, this is not intended for regular situations. It was a very, very serious case, a very serious medical condition. So sometimes the Rav has to say, this is not something to share with your friends. If you have a heter for kach v'kach, it's not pshat, and now you can go tell your cousin or your best friend, or to post it online, that chacham ploni tirli asamara as the lashon is in Simkuf Peiches, that I got a psak of kach v'kach from this and this Rav, and now it becomes a standard psak. So definitely there has to be a zehirus, that the person who's receiving the psak has to understand that it's for them. But the truth is that anytime. It's not just in the case of Shas Chak, but in reality, when a person gets a psak, it's for them and them only. And I want to share with you an unbelievable story that I heard from a very close friend of mine. There was a famous pasuk in Eretz Yisrael in Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. He was the Rabbi of Yerushalayim, he was the Rabbi of Yerushalayim. And there was a Yid that he had cholent. It came Shabbos morning. I apologize. He had challah. He was mafresh challah out of Shabbos. And then Shabbos morning, they realized, 1 second, where is that challah that we were mafresh? The kitzur, it fell into the cholent. Oh boy, what are you going to do, right? It's Eretz Yisrael. It's not so simple like in Chutz La'aretz. There's the famous Beis Hillel. Okay. In Eretz Yisrael, it's much more strict. So, like every Yid, he went to the Rav. He was on his way to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld to ask him a shayla. And punkt, as he's walking, he runs into his best friend and he says, "Oh, where are you going?" Oh, and they realize he was coming back from the Rav himself. What was the shayla that you asked? He told him that my challah fell into the cholent. So the Yid who was on the way to Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld said, "I have the exact same shayla. I'm about to ask the same shayla. What was the psak that he gave you?" And he told him it's good. Oh, he was, very relieved. Wow. He was told the psak that it's okay to eat. But he realized he's a frummi Yid. That's not how halocha works. I have to go and ask my own shayla. He went to the Rav, and the Rav told him it's not good. You're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos. So the Yid told him, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but what happened over here? I happened to have bumped into my friend, just leaving your office with the exact same shayla, and you gave him the psak kach v'kach. All of a sudden, did I do something wrong to you? What? So he answered him like this. He says, "No, you got it all wrong." That Yid, the first Yid that came to me, has a huge mishpacha with lots and lots of kids. They don't have so much money, so they fill up the cholent with not just meat, they fill it up with kiddubai, so it's in order so people should be full. And there's no suffix that it had shishim against the challah that fell in. You already married off all your children. I know your cholent is just made for you and your Rebbetzin. There's no way that it was bottled. So once the Yid heard that, he realized, wow, the important zehiros that, the Nakuda is exact same thing. We were asking Shailos, you cannot be Semicha on what the psak that your friend got. You have to ask your own shayla because you don't know, first of all, what question they asked. You don't know what they asked. They're telling you the psak that they received, but they're not telling you the conditions being the matzav that they were in to receive such a psak. It could be the psak was correct only in their case, and you cannot learn from it in your case. So this is a very, very important case. That's a lesson for everybody, and for the Rav also. There should be a special zehiros to remind people that not to go shopping for piskei halachas on the internet or from your friends, but to make sure to ask properly from for yourself.
Well, going back to your reference to this past week's Pirkei Avos, Asay L'Chorav, which Bashkacha Pratis is the name that Levi and I chose for this monthly segment interviewing Rabbonim and Mashpiyim, and we're honored that you're our first Rav in the series. So, what's the practical? You're dealing with obviously a huge interest for your, being able to ask a shaylos. Rev Tuvia is obviously in high demand, 200-300 shaylos a day, but you lack a lot of personal context for a lot of your shayolim. You don't necessarily know them personally. You don't even necessarily know their names. So how do you deal with that? Barrier?
This is a very good shayla. This is a very, very good shayla, and I'll tell you, I'll preface that there's a Rav in England, Daim Padva, the Baal Cheshav Eifed, very, very chashav paisik that not Lubavitcher and many Lubavitcher Rebbonim did shimush by him. Just a reference to
you can
the
say
previous.
A few names. You can say a few names. Rabbi Chaikin, Dayan Raskin. Who am I missing?
Yeah. Those two definitely come up, definitely. And so he has a Talmud that published he grew up in his house. He was a ben bayis by him. His name was Avram Yena Schwartz. He was actually the father of the David Sinadayan. He lived by him. He grew up by his house. And he put out a sefer called Haliches Chanoich, that all of the Piskei Halachas, the Anhagas that he saw by him, he printed it. He wrote it down for himself when he was young, and he's today probably in his 60s, maybe it has to be in his 70s, late 70s, Mistama. So they printed it a few years ago, and over there it says that he would try be mishtadel not to answer even over the phone. Why? Because he wanted to know who he's answering, which is so important because, first of all, when you see the shayl, you get a full picture just by the way they conduct themselves, the way they walk into the room, the way they communicate, the way they verbalize. There's so much that you can pick up on the level where a person is holding their Avodas Hashem just by Pashat meeting the person and knowing who you're talking to. The reality is that we don't have this readily available. That's a fact. You have shluchim all over the world. You have a nash all over the world, and it's simply not possible because they don't necessarily have a job that they can go to in person. And that's another fact. And they have no choice but to call. So the answer is that you have to answer. You have to answer, and you have to listen to the person. Mitzad the shaylim themselves, I would be matzia. It's mamish kedai to introduce yourself. The Rav should know who you are. The Rav may not necessarily remember. I have phone calls on a daily basis. I spoke to you last week. I spoke to you last month, and I don't know who I'm talking to. That's a fact. I don't know. I didn't even know that they called last week. I didn't even know that they called last month. It's physically not possible to keep track, especially not based on the voices or on phone numbers. It's not practical. If a person introduces themselves with a name, that's a whole different story. Somehow information is stored when you know who you're talking to, and you can always reference to previous conversations. And I always say by shiurim v'cholu that when giving your name, you're only benefiting yourself. You're not benefiting the Rav. If the Rav is going to remember who the shaylim are, and the Rav is going to pick up on certain patterns, his Piskei Halachas may be a little bit different. And if you build, so to speak, sometimes a person has a very embarrassing question, very embarrassing, very private, v'chulu. And if the Rav is a stranger to them, how on earth do you expect them to all of a sudden ask the Shaila to know what to do? Al pi halacha. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a large barrier to break through. But if you already have a kesher with the Rav, okay, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it a walk in the park, but it's still going to take. You're still going to have to get over yourself. But it's much easier to do if the Rav already knows who you are. That already you solved. You already broke the ice, so to speak, and you have so much more of an ability to help yourself to be able to ask the question properly. Many times you hear stories that the Rav gave a certain psak kach v'kach, but the situation is so dire, how is it possible that he passed it? Because nobody told him what the situation was. He was given the question at face value without a background, without knowing who he's talking to. And, sometimes the interesting sense, extra special siyata d'shmai, that you're able to pick up on certain things and you'll ask the right questions. And Baruch Hashem, I have many stories like this, and every Rav I'm sure does. And sometimes it's a person's obligation to really give the full picture. So if you're not answering, I'm sorry, my video just went out again. If you're not able to ask in person, you're living in a remote area, at least to give your name, you're only making it easier for yourself. That's for sure. Did I answer the question, or did I miss something?
Is there anything else that a shayl can do to make it easier, or those are the main points you could think of to mention their name and to introduce themselves and to share as much information as possible? To share as much information as possible. When a Rav receives a question, he may look at it one way. But if he realizes the context of where the shaila is being asked from, it changes his whole perspective of how to approach the shaila. So calling you, is it better for them to write you a shaila or to call you? And what's the better mahalach? Definitely calling. Today, WhatsApp has become a very, very positive way. Many positive things have come from it. People, first of all, are asking shailas that not necessarily would have been asking Melechatchila. So definitely it's a very positive, it's a very healthy thing that there is such an alleyway
there is such an outlet where people can ask their Shailos to. That's hands down, no question about it. I've received numerous messages thanking the fact that we can answer through WhatsApp, because otherwise, for all these years that they were married, they wouldn't ask. They would go l'chumra, they would whatever they did up until now. Now that they have a way to ask questions anonymously and easily, so there's definitely value to being able to ask the question. That's a very positive thing, and it's a B'chazdei Hashem today makes it much easier. So it has value on its own. Is it the best? Definitely not, but there is value to it. So definitely, if somebody wants to ask Kedeboy, so to speak, the best way is to call. That's no question about it. And the Rav is not judging you. Trust me, the Rav is not judging you. The Rav is looking at every single individual as a neshama who needs to know haderech, shayasun, a maisa, shayasun, what they need to do halocha l'maisa. That's the only cheshbeinus in the Rav's mind. Any embarrassments that a person may think about themselves, v'chulu, I want to tell you a secret. We've seen it all. There's nothing new. Ein kol chadash tachas hashemesh. We've seen it all. The worst of the worst, the best of the best. There's no judgment going on in phone calls. And the Rav's whole, a doctor. I always like to give the marshal of a doctor. Sometimes the doctor is frank. He asks you very uncomfortable questions. Do you do kach v'kach? Do you take substances that you shouldn't be taking? Do you drink? Do you do other things that a person may not be so proud about? And if the answer that the person is saying is yes, I do, imagine how he feels. He feels very, very uncomfortable, right? That he is being moidum esvada, that he does kach v'kach. But nevertheless, I hope they're not going to lie to the doctor. Why not? Because they realize it's l'tevasam, it's for their own good to be able to get the proper medical care that they need. Lahav does the same thing when asking a shayla. Yeah, it could be that certain questions are not so comfortable to disclose certain information, but the reality is it's l'tevascha, it's pasha to help you to be able to serve the Eibishter properly, to give you the psak that you need in your current matziv. So that's usually the mahalach. L'chatchila, definitely a phone call, or at least on a WhatsApp, to be as clear as you could with all of the information required, if it's a difficult situation, of course.
Mm-hmm. What's your schedule like to keep your expertise?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. My schedule, I don't have a schedule. I'm always on, it's always on call. The schedule is trying to wake up very early in the morning. If there's time to chap it out a little bit, learn a little bit, definitely try to do that. But I usually daven first thing in the morning, and I go to sleep very late at night. If I'm not able to finish all of my learning by day, which many times physically it's not possible, I go to sleep very, very late until I finish all my shiurim. My shiurim are not just Chidas and Rambam. It's Pashat Chazring over and over and over, different halachas, taking new sugyas, so on and so forth. And that's mitzvah the learning.
How many times have you been through Hilchas Nida with the Shach and Taz?
Many, Baruch Hashem, many.
More than 50?
I never counted, but if you go on my shelf, there's one sefer that is completely torn apart, and you can guess which Chelik Shulchan Aruch it is. So, Baruch Hashem, many times. Sorry?
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. So you constantly chazer, and just reference back to my conversation with Reb Shmuel first, and actually also with the Rebbe. This is the Kol in Yonim. One time when I was going for Shimush by the Rebbe, I stopped to take a peek through the window, and it was so geschmack to see him Pashat sitting and chazering Shulchan Aruch. Halachas that he knew backwards and forwards. But just to see the tzir, just to see how somebody who's answering Shailos beyond full time, beyond nonstop, is Pashat sitting and reviewing and chazering the shach and taz, and it's a tremendous chizuk, and that's why I actually purchased. I actually purchased a small set of the Shulchan Aruch in order to have a v'lachtacha v'derech that no matter what, no matter where, no matter who, that I always have a Shulchan Aruch that I'm able to constantly chazer with. So that's a tremendous example that I saw from my teachers, and I tried to implement that in my literally day-to-day life as much as I could.
What's your opinion on the current Lubavitch Shechita?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. You look at the Shechita, you look at the Rav. The Shechita is Yireh Shamayim, the Rav is Yireh Shamayim, the Bedek is Yireh Shamayim. Then you eat it. If somebody in that chain of command is not Yireh Shamayim, you stay far, far away from it.
Let me ask you a brief shaila on that question. And the general concept that something I learned a lot from Rav Kasimov is staying out of machlokes and not getting into the weeds of politics and these types of things. But where do you draw the line between, if a voice needs to be given on complex political questions, who should give that voice if not for that Rav, that, like the way you started your original point from the Debret Sinner and being scared to get into politics. If someone's not scared to comment on sensitive issues, we wouldn't want him to be commenting. But how do you know that whose place is it for to be giving a quote unquote das Torah on sensitive issues?
This is a $1 million question, and I'll take example from Rabbi Heller. When I was in Kollel, Rabbi Heller would give once a week shmooze and whatever. He would speak to us, and he would say like this, and he took example from the Rebbe, that whenever such a case, whenever something happened, whatever it was, if a person has any personal pniya, any personal gain in getting involved, it's not l'shma. It's not l'shem shamayim. You're not allowed to get involved. The examples that he gave, that there were many times that the Rebbe was, so to speak, attacked from certain individuals from Bnei Brak, different mivtzoim that were established in Chulu. And if it was not l'shem ha'inyan, l'shma, l'shem Hashem, the Rebbe wouldn't answer. Because that's machlokes. That's purely machlokes, stam fighting people. Chas v'shalom, that you cannot get involved at all in such things. This is the measuring stick of how to go about these situations. If a person has any personal gain, whatever angle you may look at it, if you say something, you'll receive tevas hana from this individual, you'll gain from that individual, v'chulu v'chulu, absolutely, you have no right to get involved. Why? Because you're not doing it l'man Hashem, you're not doing it l'man terasa, you're not doing it to be meisif, as I saw in Yerushalayim, you're doing it. You're using this as a stepping stool for personal gain, and that is an absolute problem. If somebody means something truly lishma, trust me, there's not going to be public letters. If somebody means something l'man Hashem v'terase, there's not going to be any public fighting. Everything's going to be done in a proper, respectful manner behind closed doors, and nobody even has to know about it. This is the proper mahalach of how things are done. Once it reaches the street, you know it's not l'man Hashem. It has nothing to do with Torah and Yerushalayim, period, end. Are there exclusions to this rule? Very possible. It could be, but this is the measure. This is the main way of how to measure it. Somebody makes a comment, somebody responds to that. You know that there's no Torah and there's no Yerushalayim in such discussions. So a few weeks ago, I was speaking to a Rav who I'm very, very close with, and he felt that there's a certain pirza going on amongst, in Crown Heights, whatever. And he begged me, please, please, please try to make an effort to speak about it, try to be mechazik in light. I'll tell you what it was, have a filter on the phone. He felt that it's the matzav is the stories that he's hearing of youngsters, mamish bachrim, young girls, of what they're getting themselves into is really, really terrible. So we were discussing, and the maskana is that if it's truly l'shem shamayim, then the mahalach is you take one by one. You have somebody who you have ashpa on, try to be mechazik them. Once their teif is the inyan, they understand the importance of having such a filter. I'm just using this as an example. They'll believe in it, and they'll share with their friends. Listen, you can be learning an extra 5 minutes. Why are you wasting your time looking at Dvarim Asurim? Right? I'm just giving an example. So if it's Dvar Meyetzim in a Lev, that's the only way that you can be mashpia on another Yid. And taking a fight to the street I don't believe has any Torah or any Yiras Shamayim in such a conduct. Lanios Daiti. I could be wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I view it. Or at least that's the way I heard and the way I understood what I heard.
Okay.
So we have to wrap up here, right? You need to go at 3:30?
Up to you. But if there's one more question, it's fine, I think.
I have like my last question, so I don't know if it'll take up the last couple of minutes. If there's only one thing you can tell this audience, what would you like that to be?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say chazak ve'ematz. What I mean by that, by chazak ve'ematz, that we have to be mechazek and strengthen ourselves in limud Torah. You know, you have people going through the day without a Jewish word. You know, they daven shachas properly. If they finish the Hillim with a minyan, this is already mamash an accomplishment. If they finish kaveh, shir shal yain, this is already a big deal. If a yid is healthy, if he has kviyas itim l'Torah, he's sitting and he's learning, and it's a kviyas benefesh that no matter what, a day cannot go by that I don't learn Torah, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. The Torah is mechazik you. The Torah is going to strengthen you. That the rest of the Yiddishkeit is going to be also, it's going to have a chizuk. And this is the mahalach, that Yidden, we have to learn Torah, myself included. We have to also be meisif, always chazer more and more and more, take upon new sidrei limud, to chazer more, to teach more. You know a certain mimer, take another Yid, sit with him, learn with him the mimer. You know Mishnah, take a chavrusa, you see somebody's not learning in shul, you have a kasha with them, sit and learn with them the Mishnah. You sang Geshmak bar Tanura, teach it to somebody else. You have no idea what kind of effect the Torah is going to have on this neshama. So it needs the limud Torah definitely by everyone, and I'm not excluded. I'm included in this message. We need to be mechazek our shiurim. We have to be mechazek our limud Torah, and that's going to lead to proper shmira of Torah mitzvahs. And this is the main thing. This is the main thing. Ultimately, this is what we need. This is definitely going to bring the gula. You know that b'schus mishnayos, it's not just mishnayos, but the halachas psukas, b'shulchan aruch. This is the way to bring the gula mitzvah shleima. There's no shayla about it. Himself in learning. This is the way to go. Be'ez Hashem yisbarach.
All right. Thank you very much, Reb Tuvia, for your time. It's very nice.
Okay.
Whenever I speak to Rabbi Kasimov, I feel guilty because he just missed 47 calls and 19 WhatsApps. So
I did.
Yashakaya, I have to say on behalf of Lubavitch, a grace in Yashakayach, you know, we're very lucky to have you, and thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Hatzlacha Rabbi Muflaga.
Both.
Okay.
If you've reached this part of the video, you probably enjoyed it. Please consider donating a video or many videos. Help us continue doing these amazing interviews. Or you may do it in honor of someone, in memory of someone. It's all good. Hope you enjoyed and see you in the next video. Do you by any chance feel the need to be heard, to be motivated, to be someone to accountable to, a coach? Well, you're in luck because I'm starting to coach and first session is free. You heard right, it's free. You can reach out to me at levisocialhome@gmail.com, which can also be found in the link in the description. And if you want to find out a little bit who I am, you can search my first videos to get a little taste of me. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video and see you in the next one. Have a great day.